let's dive right in. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on something pretty well eye-opening, the UK's financial situation. There's this new article by Steve Davison at baffledbyscience.com entitled Britain's Looming Fiscal Storm.
Yes, it's all about this new report from the UK Office for Budget Responsibility, the OBR, right?
The OBR. And from what I've seen, they're really not holding back this time.
No, they're not. They're saying that Britain's public finances basically are in an unsustainable position in the long run, facing, as they put it, an array of promises the nation cannot afford.
Unsustainable. That's a strong word, especially coming from the OBR. When they say that, what are we actually talking about? What does unsustainable look like, down the line for people?
Well, that's the billion-pound question here. This report, it's a really stark warning. It paints this picture of, rapidly rising debt. We've got an aging population, and then these escalating costs of moving to a net zero economy.
Okay, so multiple pressures hitting at once.
Exactly. And to put some figures on it for you, end of 2024, the UK government debt was at 94% of GDP. That's sixth highest among advanced economies.
Sixth highest, wow.
Yeah, and borrowing costs, the UK government's facing the third highest. It just underscores how increasingly vulnerable the position is becoming. So for this deep dive, we really want to unpack these pressures, especially the big one, net zero costs.
Okay, net zero, that always sparks debate. The OBR is estimating, over £800 billion over the next couple of decades just for that transition.
That's the headline figure, yes, averaging roughly $30 billion a year until at least 2051.
How do they even get to that number? What's the biggest chunk of that cost?
Well, the OBR breaks it down mainly into two parts. You've got nearly £9 billion a year for infrastructure, grid upgrades, that sort of thing.
Okay, necessary investments.
Right? But the bigger slice, about $20.5 billion a year, is actually lost revenue. It's from declining fuel duty as, more electric vehicles come online.
So it's not just spending, it's income disappearing too.
Precisely. And the OBR makes a point of saying these lost tax receipts, they'll eventually become the bigger financial headache for the government. They even mention that the government will have to introduce pay-per-mile road charges in future.
Pay-per-mile, yeah, okay, that would definitely hit people directly. But hang on, this is where it gets complicated, right? Because the article highlights some really different takes on these numbers. You said 800 billion sounds huge, but it's actually less than their old estimates.
That's right. It's a downward revision. Their 2021 estimate was 1.1 trillion, so it's come down.
Okay, but then you have critics like David Turvett mentioned in the article saying the OBR is just parroting the Climate Change Committee, the CCC.
Yes, that's a key criticism raised.
And the CCC's own estimate for the whole economy cost is way lower, like £116 billion by 2050.
How can these numbers be so wildly different? 800 billion versus 116 billion.
Well, that's a really crucial point. It boils down to a massive assumption in the CCC's calculation. Their much lower figure, it depends on carbon taxes going through the roof.
How high are we talking?
From about £42 per tonne now to what Davison calls a staggering £328 per tonne.
Whoa, 328 a tonne.
Exactly. So the catch is while the CCC number looks smaller on the surface, it relies on a carbon tax hike that could frankly make the OBR's forecast seem almost rosy for the taxpayer. The article suggests the actuality will be significantly worse for public finances than even the OBR's current figures.
So the official numbers might actually be understating the hit. That's concerning. And this leads to another big question, doesn't it? The wider financial risks of climate change itself, because again, there is major disagreement here.
They do. You have the OBR warning that, say, a 3-degree sea rise could add 74% of GDP to government debt by the early 70s.
Which sounds terrifying, but Davison pushes back hard, calls that made-up nonsense.
Right. The argument presented there is that richer societies are more resilient to extreme weather. So becoming richer is actually the, quote, absolute best thing to protect against climate change impacts.
So invest in growth rather than specific, potentially costly mitigation.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is what the OBR itself admits. They actually state, and this is pretty critical, that unlike transition costs, there is little the UK can do directly to reduce these costs from climate impacts as they are driven by the impact of global climate change.
Meaning it depends on what the big global emitters do?
Precisely. And so by how much major global emitters reduce their emissions over the coming decades. This kind of implies the UK's own net zero policies are doomed to failure in terms of actually stopping those global impacts on their own.
It really raises questions about the effectiveness of purely domestic actions. It's a sobering thought. And net zero isn't the only pressure point the OBR flagged, is it? There were others.
Oh, absolutely. It's all interconnected. You've got the state pension triple lock, pensions rising by inflation, earnings, or 2.5%, whichever is highest. That's projected to cost an extra $15.5 billion a year by the next election.
$15.5 billion just for that.
Yes, then there's a potential shift in private pensions affecting demand for government debt, which could hike borrowing costs by another £22 billion.
Oh.
And you layer on top geopolitical risks, health and welfare spending pressures, local authorities struggling. It's quite a list.
It really is a convergence of major challenges.
So pulling it all together, the big message from the OBR seems crystal clear. This mix of structural weaknesses, expensive long-term promises like the pensions triple lock, plus the huge financial weight of climate policies, which are probably severely underestimated, it all poses a really formidable challenge.
A perfect storm, almost.
You could say that the OBR's warning is stark. Without difficult policy choices, the UK risks an unsustainable debt trajectory, and that means less ability to handle future shocks.
Difficult choices indeed, which leaves us and you listening with a real puzzle, doesn't it? When you consider the OBR admitting the UK's limited direct power over global emissions, these very different views on the cost and effectiveness of net zero, what's the right balance for the UK? How much focus on domestic climate action versus building broader economic resilience to truly secure the future? Something to think about.
That wraps it up for now. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
And do visit baffledbyscience.com to keep up to date with the latest developments in renewable energy policy.
And as always, we encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, and stay informed. Until next time.